Welcome everybody. Apologies, we had some technical difficulties. Welcome back. We are at the Hopeshine on the Waterfront event here in Bucksport, and we are singing along, if we know the words, to Lewis's beautiful guitar strumming. So welcome.
Who's that? Oh no, that is a good song. I should know that. Yeah, I like that.
I'm
song.
trying to remember, but I could look them up, but my phone's being used.
Oh yeah. I think you guys will probably know this one. It's 6 a.m. I feel so far from where I've been. I got my eggs, I got my pancakes too. I got my maple syrup, everything but you. Break the yolks and make a smiley face. I kinda like it in my brand new place. It's lots of gold for me to leave the keys in the door. I never put my house on the floor anymore, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon you will see you were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Mama, she went out for a walk, consoled a cup of coffee, but it didn't want to talk, so I picked up the paper. It was more bad news. My heart's been broken, more people been used. Put on my PJs and hop into bed. I'm half alive, but I feel mostly dead. Try and tell myself it'll all be alright. I just shouldn't think anymore tonight, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon you will see you were meant for me, and I was meant for you. I go about my business, I am doing fine. Beside the what will I say if I had you on the line? Same old story, not much to say. Hearts are broken every day. Thank you. I brush my teeth and put the cap back on. I know you hate it when I leave the light on. I pick up a cup and then I turn the sheets down, and then I take a deep breath and a good look around. Put on my PJs and hop into bed. Feel alive, but I feel mostly dead. Try and tell myself it'll all be alright. I just shouldn't think anymore tonight, 'cause dreams last for so long, even after you're gone. And I know that you love me, and soon I know you will see you were meant for me, and I was meant for you. Yeah, you were meant for me, and I was meant for rate is very low. I should have echoed it.
Are we working now?
Yes, we are working now. We have 2 people on at the moment.
Hello, thank you for joining. We're probably going to do one more song, and then we're going to get into it. If Lewis doesn't mind obliging with his beautiful guitar and his beautiful voice.
I could try Fast Car if you guys know the words and you'll help me with it.
I don't, but the internet does.
Actually, I know I can sing with it in the car.
Okay. If you forget, I'll just
You got a fast car. I want to get to anywhere. Maybe can deal. Maybe together we can get somewhere. Any place is better. Starting from zero, got nothing to lose. Maybe we'll make something. Me, myself, I got nothing to prove. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. See, my old man's got a problem. He lives with the bottle, that's the way it is. He said his body's too old for working. His body's too young to look like this. My mama went off and left him. She wanted more from life than he could give. I said, somebody's got to take care of him. So I quit school and that's what I did. You got a fast car. Is it fast enough so we can fly away? We gotta make a decision. Leave tonight or live and die this way. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone. Between ourselves, still ain't got a job. Now we're working the market as a checkout girl. I know things will get better. Now you'll find work and I'll get promoted, and we'll move out of the shelter, buy a bigger house and live in the suburbs.
I got a job that pays all our bills. You stay out drinking late on the bar.
Move your friends and you do your kids. I'd always hope for better.
If only we be together, you and me would
Find it. I got no plans, I ain't going nowhere. Take your fast car and keep on driving. So I remember when we were driving in your car. Speed so fast I felt like I was drunk. City lights lay out before us, and your arm felt nice wrapped around my shoulder. And I had a feeling that I belonged. I had a feeling I could be someone, be someone, be someone.
You got a fast car. Is it
Fast
fast
enough so we can fly away. We
Still gotta make a decision.
leave tonight or live and die this way. ever played that. I just thought that would be fun to sing.
It's so pretty.
All right, if we're gonna.
So
It's like I'm trying to get everybody in the shot, but it's hard to.
I know it's so early. We have to go. Thank you for having us. I'm sorry we have to go so early.
Thank you for coming.
It's really nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you.
And Lewis, you have a beautiful place per
Oh,
usual.
thank you.
No surprises.
Yes.
Hi, guys.
Nice meeting you.
Ryan,
Thank you.
Bye.
She was sweet.
Drive safe back.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, everybody. We are here with the Reverend Father Paxton James Chance, and we are here to have a discussion today. What kind of discussion are we having today, Father Paxton?
Well, I just would like to introduce some people to a concept called Polyspiritualism, and the whole concept behind Polyspiritualism. Let me break it down. Poly meaning many, and spiritualism, I'm sure you can all guess what that stands for. I think that in this day and age, there's lots of people that are very spiritual. We're all seeking some sort of connection, some sort of magic, some sort of something to fill us up inside and connect to nature and to each other. And the thing with that, though, is a lot of the time we're alone in that. It's not something that we share together. And so in comes polyspiritualism. And what makes it a religion versus just being a spiritual person is the fact that it's community. It's a group coming together to share their feelings, their beliefs, their spirituality, their connection. And so, hence polyspiritualism was born. And my main goal with this is the idea that all paths lead to God, to the truth, to unity, to communion with your soul. It doesn't matter. It's all valid as long as it's coming from a good place. There's so much hate and discontent in this world because nobody can agree on anything. Because your God is better than my God, or my belief system is better than your belief system. And here at Hopeshine, we like to be all-inclusive. We like to be respectful. We like to be aware of the fact that we're all different, and that's not a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing, and that shouldn't separate us. Because there's plenty of things that we have in common as well. And that's the whole point. So, let's open it up to see if anybody has anything they'd like to discuss. I think my first question for you guys would be, what drew you to this in particular? What was it that stood out to you about this when you heard about it?
I think connection.
Yeah, connection.
Yeah?
Krista and I have talked about this a few times now, and now that we're finally having the opportunity to all sit together, we've had moments where we've felt lost and alone and wanted to feel a connection with other people. And we've been talking about a space, where do we go, and where are we going to feel like we can just be ourselves and be present and be surrounded by kindness and unity.
You had said something before when we live streamed before about how what religion you grew up in, and how even though you didn't associate very much with that religion anymore, it was the community aspect of it that you missed.
Yes.
Because I feel much the same way. I was raised Christian, going to church every Sunday, and Bible study and Sunday school and all of that. And even though I didn't resonate very much with that particular dogma, the being able to have that community was important to me.
Yes, absolutely. That's what stands out from that experience. When we were growing up, we have been baptized, and we have been raised to also go to service every Sunday, and it was the connection between people there that stands out to me most over time, and the regular gathering of people who are sharing in having a nice time together in a space that welcomes spirituality.
Well, I think religion is such a bad word these days, because it's such a driver of so much discontent and so much hate, and a lot of wars are fought because of religion, because your God is better than my God, or our ways are better than your ways. And I think that's really interesting, because if you think about it, like culturally speaking, and the way that the world is set up, we're all different. We all come from different environments. We all have different cultures. Of course, our religions in different areas are going to develop to suit our environment and what we're familiar with. So just because somebody over in India has a different image of God than somebody over in like France or something, doesn't necessarily mean that it's a different God. You know, and the whole idea of there's but one God, and this is the right God, and this is how you pray, and all of this, logically that doesn't make sense. Right. Like the Polyspiritualist view is that all gods stem from the same God or the same source, whether that's God or just the source in the universe itself. It all stems from the same place, and just different cultures have put different faces and different names to that source. And there's also a part that I believe that our souls are made out of that source, and that's what connects us all together. Like that light that drives everything. It's in nature, it's in beauty, it's in love, and it's inside of all of us. And I personally believe that we can grow that light together the more we come together in peace and understanding and acceptance. Why should we disclude people just because of their sexual orientation, or because they're a woman in a misogynistic culture, or any reasons why people are excluded? I mean, that's one thing coming from the LGBT community that I've struggled with, because I see so many people that are so in love with their beliefs and not wanting to lose that community. And it's beautiful that there's plenty of like Christian churches now that are more open and accepting. That's beautiful, but at the same time, the book that they follow itself denounces them. So the flat out bottom line thing is, it frustrates me that, you know, it's like, oh, well, we're making an exception for you in this one church. But like if you were to go to another Christian church up the road, it's not going to be the same.
Yeah.
And that's sad. It shouldn't matter. Anybody should be welcome. Anybody should be validated. Anybody should be accepted. We're all human beings. We all just want to live our lives.
Absolutely.
What about you, Krista? Were you raised in a particular religion?
I grew up really not going to church. My parents didn't go to church. I was told, you know, there's God, but like, I just wasn't really taught, you know. But like growing up, I felt like I was missing connections, and things like that. And I think what draws me to spirituality is trying to put it into words. Like I have it all up here, I just can't put it into words.
You're fine. I know the feeling.
Yeah, like going to a church and feeling like you don't belong because like, oh, like I feel so different.
Yeah.
Like I feel like just because I don't necessarily believe what they believe,
Right.
I should still feel like I belong. But
Exactly.
I feel like
Well, exactly. You're not going to feel comfortable somewhere where you feel like you don't belong.
Right.
And everybody should feel like they belong. What about you, Lewis? What's your experience?
So I was raised Catholic, and I was.
All the Catholics up in the
I know,
house.
it's so funny. It was so funny because I actually didn't, because I'm such a spiritual person now, and I never hated that religion or anything. Like, I never hated it. There were a lot of aspects of it that I liked, but there were a lot of things that I didn't like about it. But one of the things was that I feel like what you see a lot of people who are so faithful about going now, if you ask them what they love about it, maybe they would admit this and maybe they wouldn't, but they can't deny that they love the community aspect of it. They love having somewhere to go, every week, meeting their friends, staying in the loop with the goings on of the
feeling
community.
like they belong.
Right, and then and like going to activities and potlucks and all of the things that go with it. But then when you get down to the nitty gritty of what the tenets are, it's like, are they well versed in it? Do they believe in all of it? And
a lot of the time they're not.
Right. And then you hear people that will have these convictions about being more spiritual, which is a great thing. And that's when it's like you want to have those worlds kind of come together, where you can feel like you have this community that's going to back you, but you don't feel like you have to be so 100% aligned with these very,
It's
very
the boxes.
Yes.
It's the
That
boxes.
was well said.
Yeah.
Being squozed into the boxes.
Yeah, exactly. So I love the idea of having a place to exercise your own convictions, but then having it still go along with maybe the aesthetics of a church or the community aspect of a church. Because people do love that. They feel safe there. They feel a sense of being restored every week, and that's why they continue to go. But then if you ask them maybe or how well versed they are in the Bible or any belief system, any sort of religion, it's really interesting actually. If you were to study the Bible or the Tanakh or the Quran, it's really interesting how people are very dedicated to these religions, and they're wonderful. But it's like
They're all up to interpretation is one thing.
and that too, right?
Right.
Exactly.
It's just like the justice system. It's like there are some people that take the Constitution like literally,
Exactly.
and then there's other people that leave more room for, well, maybe this or that, or like, we don't need to take it literally. So there's that, and I think also depending on the religions and I think there's a lot, like the world's major religions make up Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism. And I think that because it's such a large majority of the people, a lot of them don't know everything that you would think that they should. Like, especially like a devout Christian, you would expect to know. Like, that's the one thing that bothers me a lot about some of the denominations in Christianity is they neglect the New Testament.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So they're still living in this Old Testament world of thou shalt not this and that and another thing, and we're all sinners and all of this. Okay, but then what about Jesus? Who spoke about love? Who spoke about mercy? Who spoke about charity? Being kind to one another. Forgiveness.
Yeah.
And acceptance. And a lot of the Christians, even though they're all in love with Jesus, they still they discount all of that by still throwing out a bunch of, well, it's wrong for you to be this way, or it's wrong for you to do that way. And that always bothered me a lot, because that was the one thing that I did really resonate a lot with when I was a kid going to church, was the teachings of Jesus. Because it was just beautiful.
It was.
The lessons that he tried to teach people.
Oh yeah.
And I think that if more people, more Christians especially, lived more, remember the whole "what would Jesus do" fad back in the 90s?
I think some people still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, I think if that was more in their consciousness, I think that would work a little better.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But in having been studying theology my whole life, because, you know, I was raised a certain way, but like you were saying, there's certain aspects that just didn't fit right.
Right.
So then I went exploring other areas. And so then I'm like, oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Like, that resonates with me, like, from this area. But still not entirely. And then over here. And so most of my life, I just took bits and pieces and customized my own little thing going on. There's no community in that either. Like, that's just me doing whatever I'm doing, and that felt lonely. And then I remember reading something in one of my books on Hinduism about how the Hindus believe in the 7 avatars of the Lord, where every age, because they break it down into a certain age, because it's not just our souls and bodies that are reborn, but it's also the world that is all, and the universe itself. We're all in a cycle, according to Hinduism.
Right.
And so for each age, there's like a coming of the Christ, or of God on earth, you know, a holy spiritual prophet, however you want to say it. And they acknowledge every other religion's prophets or holy men. They acknowledge Buddha. They acknowledge Jesus. They acknowledge Allah. They acknowledge all these other religions' holy prophets.
Yeah.
And that clicked in my head very hardcore, because I was like, you know, why can't that be a thing? Why isn't that more well known? Like, why can't we be more respectful of other people and acknowledge, whether you want to actually believe Jesus was the Son of God, or Allah or Buddha was the vessel of God, or just very enlightened holy people that just did really good things and spurred on all of these religions. And initially, it all came from good places.
Yes.
I mean, so what I've basically, you know, there are a lot of similarities between the religions.
Yeah.
There are a lot of
I agree.
similarities. Like, everybody believes that, like, you know, basic moral codes, like that, and in doing good and being disciplined and that sort of thing. And those aren't bad things. But then a lot of their religion or their books, like, contradict things. And that's what bothers me. And I think spirituality, just like us, is ever evolving. Like, we can't just stick in a box and just be like, this is it, and that's it.
Right.
Because we all grow. And we,
That's what I was just thinking. We all grow and we all change.
right. So why should we stick so rigidly to one set of beliefs our whole entire lives, when eventually we might outgrow those beliefs, or we might limit our own growth by trying to constrain ourselves to those beliefs?
That is exactly what I felt like around 14 years old. Like, there was more to explore and more to read, because like you've just said, if religions all acknowledge that there are these other, like, everyone is aware that there is a similarity, and then what happens with that? Well, we're discussing that today.
Well, instead of fighting all the time about
Right.
what we have different, why can't we come together with what we all agree on?
Exactly.
I never understood that. We all agree, like, in all of the religions anyway. It's all agreed upon that there's a God. It's all agreed upon that there's God's plan. It's all agreed upon to respect nature, to respect each other.
Mm-hmm.
Why can't we just focus on what we all agree on, as opposed to arguing and discounting people and alienating people, or worse, depending on where you are in the world, or what church group you might be a part of, or what religion you might be a part of?
The all or nothing mentality is really scary, and I think
Yeah.
really toxic to me, because when you look at Catholicism, I knew, obviously coming from a very Catholic family, my family obviously knew, we know a lot of Catholics, and I knew a lot that were very disillusioned when the sexual abuse things with cases were coming out.
Yeah.
And I knew a lot of them that stopped going to church because they were so disillusioned, and they felt, with that happening, they felt very, very alienated. And I don't know if it's necessarily the Catholic Church that promotes this, if it's Christianity, if it's just a humanistic thing, but it was like they thought, well, since that happened and I didn't like it and it really made me uncomfortable and I felt very offended by that, well, it's all or nothing. I'm just going to stop going, and that's it. I'm not going anymore. And that, that's their prerogative. But it's interesting to me because it kind of goes into that whole thing about like, well, who's to say that born again Christians, for example, they don't believe that any belief system can coexist. You cannot take pieces from that religion and pieces from that religion.
It's blasphemy. It is the biggest blasphemy. I mean, it's one of the commandments. Thou shalt have no other gods before me.
Exactly. So it's very
Which, in and of itself, proves, okay, they're acknowledging there are other gods.
Yeah, exactly.
But there is only one God.
Yeah.
But thou shalt have no other gods.
Right.
In a way, it feels to me like that's acknowledging that there are.
Yeah.
And it's like, with that, I mean, that was such a traumatic thing, and they felt like the Pope, which was Benedict at the time, they felt like he didn't really respond adequately enough to it. And that's not me saying, well, they should have just kept going. But what I noticed with a lot of these people was that they were just so disillusioned by their church that they didn't want to look into any belief system or spirituality.
Yeah, there was a huge drop in all kinds of faith-based religions because of that back then. I think that was probably the beginning of the fall of the godlessness that we see today. Like, there are so many lost souls out there now because there's been so much damage done by the churches. And I think that's really sad. And I think one of the issues, obviously we're focusing a lot on Christianity because that's what we know. But, if you think about it, like, God gave us free will. We're here, whatever you want to believe in, we are here in these material bodies, in this material world, to experience it. So the whole idea of, like, denying oneself and abstinence and things like that, I think it has its place, to help you sometimes feel a little bit more connected. But at the same time, why would we be here if it wasn't to experience the world and each other?
Right, exactly.
So the whole idea of, like, priests having to be abstinent because they're holy men or nuns, it's a beautiful idea and symbolism, but it goes so against human nature. Humans just are not. We are built to be physical people.
Right.
I mean, there have been so many psychological studies proving that, there's all kinds of conditions and depressions and stuff. Like, humans need contact.
Yeah.
That's the way that we're just built.
Well, look at everything with the pandemic, and I mean, I've noticed a massive rise in whether it's spirituality or people reconnecting with their church. There's that time of being in isolation for so long.
It had a massive impact.
You need that connection.
I think that woke a lot of people up, realizing how much that they do actually need in-person, real, physical human connection. We've been going for so long, just going, and that gave us a chance to just everything full stop. And we were forced to be separate from each other. And a lot of people really struggled with that isolation. And it's something that it was taken for granted for up until that point.
Yes.
So I think there's a lot more awareness now that that's what people need. Like, people need people.
And it's interesting that that has occurred because you almost think, you almost look at how things manifest, and here has come along this giant event in a world where people have been so disconnected for the various reasons that you were all discussing earlier about why religion might feel uncomfortable or it's bad, or it's now drawing back to, oh wait, the connection and the things that people resonate with within the religions are now coming back together. Like, it's like full circle. Because I feel anyway that things and the ways that people thought about spirituality within themselves or with one another or any religion, everything just kind of started to fade, and like nobody was coming closer together to discuss these things.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned spirituality with the religion, because I'd like to get a little bit more into the spirituality aspect of things now.
Okay.
And that, because I think that's another thing. That's a difference, I think, the way I've considered it, that's a major difference as well between religion and just spirituality, is that a lot of religion is like based off of like the hereafter, and like you have to follow these certain rules now to be rewarded, or you'll be punished in the hereafter. But like, we're all here now, and there's so much more out there. Like, I've always felt such a call to nature and like to the cosmos. So like, I was really into like Wiccanism when I was a teenager, like, and the Green Witch and all of that. Like, that was beautiful to me. That was gorgeous to me. And like astrology and you know, the idea of other life out there and other energies out there, and you know, also all of the science that we know, you know, the physics that we know, and how the universe works as well. And there's no room for that in other religions, and that's where the spirituality aspects comes into it, because a lot of people feel, you know, really resonate in nature. Like, that's why we're doing this here, because it's beautiful. It's restorative. You can feel something if you just sit here and take it in and take that moment. Like, you can feel that peace, and you can hear the animals, and you can hear the birds, and you can feel the beat and the connection in this world. Like, if you just pause and take the moment. And so ignoring that and just always being focused on, oh well, after I die, because I want to go to heaven, or I want to have all of my virgins, or I don't want to burn in hell, or I don't want to be reincarnated as a slug, you know, like why do we have to wait for paradise in the hereafter? Why can't we have paradise here now? It's all here. We all have that drive inside of us. We all have that pull inside of us. I think we're all capable of love and connection. I mean, otherwise we wouldn't have relationships, and like that wouldn't dominate a large part of our lives, seeking out, you know, those relationships. You know, we're drawn to other people, and we're drawn to nature. Some of us more than others, I imagine. And a lot of us are drawn into the stars too, I think. Like, the universe is it's infinite. And to deny all of that and disregard all of that always bothered me, because I always felt such a connection. You know, looking up into the stars, or looking out over the water, or being out in the forest and hearing the wind in the trees and the birds. And
it's like when I was a child, my best friend and I went to Pilgrim Lodge. I don't know if anyone knows about Pilgrim Lodge, but we used to go every summer.
was that like a Bible camp?
Yeah. And that was on a lake, and it was absolutely stunning. And even though I went to a different church, my mom was open enough, because she knew the benefits that it would be for me to be outside in nature, because Andrew and I constantly running around outside and spending you know, a few weeks there, and you're singing together at sunrise in front of a lake, and that feeling that you get when you are fully connected and present in the moment is something that sticks with you in the best of ways.
Well, there's so much energy, you know, at sunrise and at sunset, and in nature itself. It's very inspiring. A lot of religions take advantage of that, and most particularly the more Eastern religions. You know, being out in nature is a big part of like Taoism and and shamanism. Exactly. Like, nature is very inspiring, and there's a reason for that, because whether you want to call it like the great source that connects everything together, or you want to say, you know, like the Christians say, God is everywhere. He's in everything. And in each one of us. Like, the thing that I remember, the exact moment when my faith started to drop. I was 7 years old, and we were on our way home from Sunday school one night, and we were in the car, and my grandparents were in the front seat talking about things, and my grandmother said something about, like, because I've always loved animals, especially cats. I'm a cat man. And she said something about how animals don't have souls. And that was the moment. That was the first moment of doubt that I had in that religion. Because who can look into an animal's eyes and not see that soul inside? There's no way. Like, in this beautiful little creature that I love so much, like in the idea, oh, they're just gonna be gone, or like burn in hell or whatever.
Yeah.
No. So, and that was the beginning of my starting to seek out other things, because I knew, even at that age, I was like, no, I can feel the soul here. I can feel the connection here. This isn't irrelevant. This creature is not irrelevant.
Right, look at everything there is to see and experience. My moment of, I guess, disappointment, I would say, was when our grandmother was really ill, and I was going through the last part of my catechism classes, and I went in to speak to the father about the fact that I was taking care of my grandmother, and he showed disappointment in me and gave me a very stern talk, and I thought, I'm helping this woman who shows up every Sunday and is so invested in Catholicism.
Because your priority was your grandmother.
Right.
Not what you were learning in catechism.
Right. And that's where I was like, okay.
Having to choose the dogma over the woman that you loved so much.
I don't know how any of you feel, if there was any moments where you kind of shifted your thought process on this, but that was mine.
Well, I think another one for me, and I think Lewis, you can probably agree with this as well, like the whole mediumship and having that extra sense and being able to sense other things, that made it very difficult for me too, because, you know, suffer a witch and all of that. But like when you're feeling things and experiencing things in those ways, it's truth. You can't deny that, and you can't discount that. And that's not an evil thing. Why should that be an evil thing? How is that an evil thing? Or a wicked thing? It can be a beautiful thing. And I think that there needs to be space for that, allotted for that. And to not feel persecuted because of that.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know about you, Lewis, but like that started very early for me.
Yeah, I was just telling Andrew about that. Like I had a very spiritual experience with my grandfather coming to me in a dream the morning that he died, and that was my first experience with anything like that when it came to, I guess you could say, perception or even extrasensory perception. But it was something that definitely I was always very interested in. Spirituality and even mysticism. I always was curious. I was very philosophical. I've always been very inquisitive, and you know, it was kind of funny because I just came from such a strict family, but I couldn't discount like what was going on. And I think everybody that feels other energies will say goes through that whole thing of like, am I crazy or whatever. But we've all had spiritual experience,
and especially being raised in a religion where that you're told
It's
that's
so
wrong.
frowned
Like
upon.
the guilt that I felt, like, and like I'm like, oh my God, I'm gonna burn in hell. Like I'm wicked.
Oh yeah.
Like there's something wrong with me, and I need to do something about this.
Right.
But the experiences that I was having, they weren't. I realized they weren't doing harm.
Right.
If anything, they were enlightening, and they were motivating me to be more empathetic, to be more open, and wanting to be more connected, and to seek out more truth. Because a lot of the time that's, you know, receiving visions and, you know, being open to what other areas might have to say to you. You know, I don't believe that, you know, it's like the whole idea of believing in ghosts. You know, if there are ghosts, then obviously they're on a different, slightly different frequency. And some people are able to tap into that sometimes. Some people aren't. But there wouldn't be so many people that could if that wasn't a thing.
I lost the messages because I tried to scroll to look at them. But we had some lovely messages from Danielle and from Tammy. Tammy says hi.
Hi Danny, hi Tammy, thank you for joining. Sorry, Andrew is trying to keep an eye on the feed over there, but he's also getting invested listening to the conversation over here. Does anybody have any questions for us that they would like to know about?
I think Danny had made a really nice, like a really beautiful comment.
I love you, Chipmunk.
Maybe could you repeat that for us so that Andrew could read it aloud?
I love you too, Tammy. God bless you for being here after.
It's like you're psychic because you said I love you, then I was like, you wrote, hello, hi.
Well, Tammy's joining us after having been up all night in a sleep study, so that's dedication and love right there.
It is.
Danielle says, love you, Froggy.
So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask any of us, or?
Danielle says, I believe you all make valid points. We do need a sense of community, but not everyone is going to fit in the mold. We all are made differently and have different viewpoints, and we should respect that. Respect of that. People should not be turned away. Thank you for explaining these to us and make us feel like we belong.
We should all always feel like we belong. And that was very well said, Danny. Very well
And
said.
Tammy said, in relation to having doubt of your religion, I had a lot of doubt in mine with my mother as my father wasn't believing in anything.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also interesting too, because your parents, Tammy, are actually completely different religions from each other, and I always found that
Interesting. Yeah, that's
fascinating
super
how
interesting.
they made their relationship work, despite the fact that they come from very different religions, but they're both pretty religious as well. And I've always found that beautiful, that despite that, you know, they've had a how long have they been married now, Tammy?
Because we have such an endogamous culture where people want to be with who they really
Right.
Mhm.
So yeah, it's very interesting. You don't see that often.
Still no answer.
Well, there's
Oh, 20 years
20 years.
Yeah.
20 years, a Jewish man and a Catholic woman.
as a stay off.
I'm surprised. Yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes they convert too, so that's really cool that they were able
Mhm.
to just like coexist.
Hmm. And those are both religions too that make you convert if you're gonna,
That's
if
the
you're gonna
thing,
marry
that's
into.
the thing. Yeah.
So I find that especially beautiful.
Catholics believe you're always Catholic, and you know Judaism is that you do have to come over to their beliefs. So it's
Mhm.
very interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, okay, now I just lost my thought. Oh, it was, there's this famous photograph, and I think it's in England, I'm not sure where, or maybe it's in Ireland. It's probably Ireland, because there's so much discontent between the Protestants and the Catholics
Yes.
over in Ireland, and there's a beautiful picture in a graveyard where there's a fence separating a Catholic graveyard from a Protestant graveyard, but a Catholic had married a Protestant. They couldn't be buried next to each other, so they built a statue of hands reaching over
Oh wow.
over the fence to touch each other.
Oh.
And like that, I thought that was really beautiful.
That is beautiful.
I mean, also sad that they couldn't just be buried next to each other,
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's sad.
but
Beautiful at the same time.
but beautiful at the same time that they're, you know, that the imagery of that.
That is really powerful.
Yeah. So, what in particular draws you? Like, what spiritual beliefs are you interested in, or have been interested in?
Well, just like growing up, like with not really having a religion and stuff. Like I just felt so disconnected, and then going through like a lot of traumatic experiences. Like
Yeah, it's
Just-
tough not having something to
Yeah.
fall back on.
yes, yeah. Just lost my thought. I'm sorry.
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, you're good. Wait, your question was. I'm sorry.
What drew you? What draws you?
What sort of spiritual things draw you?
Like what draws me to spiritualism, like the nature and how like grounding I feel just being in nature. I feel more calm being in nature than walking in to like a church,
Mm-hmm.
and then feeling kind of like an outsider. You know what I'm saying? Rather than kind of like.
Well, you mentioned you've gone through lots of traumatic experiences, and I think that must be really exceptionally difficult. I mean, I've gone through a lot too. If it weren't for my faith, I don't think that I would still be here today.
Right, then I question, I'm like, well, my parents never really had a faith, but like, I want to overcome and I want to, you know, feel good and feel, you know, feel at peace.
Mhm.
And there has to be, you know, something out there. So yeah, and I think spiritualism is more like open and less like judgmental and like more. There's more room for creativity and being yourself.
Self-discovery.
Yeah, self-discovery. And then like
And you don't have to be alone.
yeah, and I feel like I don't like the boxes, like the very strict boxes, and I feel like I'm just like an outsider. You know what I'm saying? So,
Well, that's a very valid point too, you know, and it's not an easy life, and I think it's definitely harder for some people than it is for others. I've had a very difficult life, and the thing that I've learned is that I've grown.
Oh wow.
We're in the middle of a live stream, so yeah. Yeah. So the thing is that you do grow from pain. Like there is a reason, and you have to believe that there's a reason for it, because you either come out of it stronger or you come out of it more compassionate and more empathetic. Like one of the discussions me and Jen had on a previous live stream was talking about like why do we suffer and things like that. And it, you know, it's like somebody who's never gone hungry can't really understand or empathize other people that are hungry because they don't know what it feels like. It's not going to be in their consciousness, in their awareness. So it's terrible that people have to go hungry. It's horrible. It's a horrible experience to go through, having to go through being hungry. But it makes you more aware of other people's suffering, and if and when you are able to share or help out, you're going to be inspired to do that. So you're going to be inspired to help alleviate a misery or a pain in this world because you yourself knows what it feels like.
Yeah.
You know, I think we're all drawn to particular, you know, because there's so many different sufferings and miseries in this world. So I think we all experience what we experience in a certain way, and we're drawn towards certain things that we do want, you know, we do connect with other people on, and we do want to be supportive with other people on because we know we understand, so we're there for them as best as we can be. So we all resonate with different things in that regard, I think. Like for me, hunger is a big one.
Oh yeah.
Like that's one thing that I love to ultimately, which is another reason why I'd like this to be a church as opposed to just, oh, we're just going to sit here and just talk, which is also beautiful. But like I'd like it to be able to grow big enough to the point where we are able to do, you know, we have the resources, we'll have the resources to be able to help alleviate some suffering. Like do food drives and clothing drives and, you know, help with homeless shelters and, you know, things like that. Like that is so important to me. Like
a big need for that.
there is so much need for that, and I'm so drawn to that, and I want to be able to help, but I mean, I'm disabled myself. You know, I have very limited income. There's very little I can do. I mean, if I have like one sandwich left for the week, but if somebody comes to me and they're hungry, I'm still going to share that sandwich. Like, and
I can attest to that.
yeah, she knows.
Yeah.
Do you want, let's take a minute to pause. And Andrew, would you like to show the viewers this beautiful sunset?
It is gorgeous.
Right here. Which is exactly why we chose this time to do this. Because that sunset is beautiful. So, how about we take one more comment or question from our viewers, and then we'll probably wrap it up as the sun is going down now. And I think we've had a really good conversation. I mean, unless there's something anybody else would like to share. But let's see if anybody has any comments from our viewers.
Danielle, on doubting her religion, says, my first doubt was when I was a child. Went to a small church, and some of the kids were making remarks about my family, same color and last name. We are Hispanic, and I know now as an adult that they didn't know better. They were following the examples of the adults, but at the time as a kid, I felt something was wrong with me because I didn't fit in with those around me.
And that's really sad. That's really sad. The whole point of a church to me is to have a place to belong. So I never understood that, and so many kids go through that, and so many people go through that, especially if you're, you know, not white, if you're not straight, if you're not fully abled person. You know, there's a lot of stigma against people for whatever their differences are. And that's terrible. And I'm sorry you had to go through that, Chipmunk. I'll go beat them up for you. No, I won't. Karma will get them. But you also made a valid point, like they didn't know any better. They were kids. They were just following the example of their parents. And that's why it's so important. Like, there's a lot of ignorance in the world, and not just with children. With full-fledged adults, there's a lot of ignorance. And like Lewis, like you were mentioning earlier, like there's so many people that don't even know their own religion. Like they couldn't quote the Bible verses to you. Like, I've gotten into it online with people, like on my page, who have come at me because of being LGBTQ and trying to, well, that's against God and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, well, where does it say that in the Bible? Because I have pulled out exactly 2 verses out of the entire Christian Bible that might say something specifically against sodomy.
Right.
But then I pulled out, and there were plenty more, I just stopped at like 25, talking about love and acceptance and forgiveness and not judging. So that also always bothers me about that particular religion, throwing people's differences or their life choices in their faces and using that as an excuse to discount or disclude them. When their own book itself, the majority of it is saying the opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
But they're focusing on that one verse that could also be open to interpretation, and also all takes place in the Old Testament, by the way. Just want to point that out. So yeah, I think that's, a lot of us have had those experiences, and it's sad. And I don't want anybody to ever feel that way at Hopeshine. That's probably my biggest goal right there, is I don't want anybody to ever feel alone. I don't want anybody to ever feel isolated and alienated and different. I want everybody to feel like this is a place that they can come and be accepted, and that they're welcome. And we might not always agree on everything all the time, but that doesn't mean that we disown a person just because of that.
Exactly.
People are allowed to have different opinions and different beliefs about things without just excommunicating somebody. So, does anybody else have anything else to add? Tammy, would you like to say anything before we go?
Danielle says you all are amazing.
Thank you, Danny. And thank you so much for being here, both of you. And anybody else who might be out there.
Yeah, there's a third person. Oh wait, that's me. I was like, there's a third person that's not saying
no, it's
anything.
Andrew.
No,
It's Andrew behind the camera.
One of our father's cousins came on to let us know about our great Aunt Madeline is home and safe, feeling better. So good.
Well,
And Tammy says, I think I'm okay for now. No sleep. Don't do me good.
Wow, the fire just exploded in the brain fart.
That
Andrew,
Yes.
Mr. Third Person behind the screen.
Yes.
Would you like to comment on anything?
Yeah, I guess. I have always had a very interesting.
come sit.
Well, I don't want to be on.
He doesn't want to
Yeah.
be on
Oh, I'm
camera.
sorry. I didn't know.
He's the man behind
Okay.
the camera.
I've always had a very interesting view of religion. I feel as though entities, whether it's in any religion, were created because it was the best way for us to identify with them. But I have always had the belief of, like, Earth and Mother Nature is my God, because it's tangible and it's around me and it's keeping me alive, and
It's what you can sense.
Yeah,
it's what
and
you
it's
can touch.
too much. Yeah, there's too much around to not feel like this is God. So that's my 2 cents.
Yeah,
1 or 2.
exactly. If God is God, He's everywhere. He's in everything, not just way out there.
Yeah.
Like
Energy.
exactly. It's all energy. Oh, Andrew, you gotta catch that. That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. The red sun. Would you like to play a little something softly as we're closing?
Sure.
Lewis? Because that was sounding really beautiful. So I will come over here to the sun. And I would like to thank everybody for joining us. Thank you very much, you guys, very much. I appreciate the support, and I feel very loved right now. And I'm so happy you were here. And hopefully we can do this again. And until next time, I love you all, and God bless.
Say bye, everyone.
Bye.
And he comes to the front of the camera to turn it off. Uh-oh.